The knot in my tie felt like a noose, but I'd worn worse. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the Waldorf's presidential suite, adjusting the silk. Outside, the sounds of Manhattan were a dull roar. Traffic, tourists, the city doing its usual song and dance. None of it touched me. I was already calculating the Q3 projections for Sterling Global in my head. That's what I did. I calculated. My phone buzzed on the mahogany dresser. A text from Charlotte. Side salon. Now. No, please. No, darling. Just a command. Typical Charlotte. I picked up the phone, slid it into my pocket, and walked out of the bedroom. The main suite was a flurry of stylists and assistants, all pretending not to notice a groom, looking less than thrilled. I ignored them. I knew where the side salon was. I'd booked the whole floor. I pushed open the double doors. Charlotte was there, alone. She wasn't in her wedding dress yet. That was scheduled for another hour. But she was already in her underthings. A silk slip that probably cost more than most people's cars. She was staring out the window, a glass of champagne in her hand. She didn't turn around when I entered. "You're early," I said. My voice sounded flat. Even to me. "I need to talk to you," she said. Her tone was clipped, businesslike. It was the same tone she used to fire senior vice presidents. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "We're getting married in 90 minutes. Charlotte, make it quick." She finally turned. Her face was a mask of perfect makeup, but her eyes were hard, colder than the ice in her drink. "I'm calling it off. Julian, I didn't move. I didn't blink. In my line of work, reactions were leverage. I wouldn't give her any. Run that by me again." I said, my voice dangerously calm. "The wedding," she said, taking a sip of champagne. "It's not happening. I'm ending it." I pushed off the doorframe and walked toward her, stopping a few feet away. "You're joking. The press is downstairs. The governor is here. My mother is here. For Christ's sake, you want to explain why the CEO of Sterling Global is leaving her fiancé at the altar? I don't care about the press." She snapped. "I don't care about the governor. And your mother will get over it. This isn't about them. It's about us. There's no us if you walk out that door in an hour." "Charlotte," I kept my voice low. I wasn't going to shout. Shouting was for amateurs. She laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Don't be so dramatic. There hasn't been an us for months. Maybe years. You know it. I know it. We're a merger. Julian, a very public, very profitable merger. But that's all it ever was. That's rich. Coming from you." I said, "You're the one who drafted the prenup with more clauses than a sovereign debt agreement. You're the one who scheduled our honeymoon around the Tokyo conference. Don't act like you're above the transaction. This isn't about the deal," she said, her jaw tightening. "It's about Ethan." I felt a flicker of something then. Not surprise. I'd known Ethan Cole was back in New York, but annoyance. Ethan was a ghost from her past. A venture capitalist who'd crashed and burned 3 years ago after 2 of his funds went belly up. He was a liability, not an asset. "Ethan Cole?" I asked, letting the disbelief color my words. "You're serious? You're throwing away a $3 billion merger for a guy who couldn't manage a lemonade stand without going into receivership?" "It's not about the money," she said, though we both knew it always was with her. "It's about what he represents. He represents passion, risk, something real, something you've never understood. Julian, you see everything as a line item on a spreadsheet. Our marriage, this company, me, we're all just variables in your little equations." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Passion doesn't pay dividends. Charlotte, risk gets you delisted. And real? Ethan Cole is as real as a 3-card money game in Times Square. He's back because he needs your money, not because he's rediscovered some grand love for you. Use your head." "I am using my head," she hissed. "And my heart. Something you clearly checked at the door a long time ago. I saw him last night. We talked. I realized I can't go through with this. I won't spend the rest of my life being audited by my own husband." "So that's it?" I asked. "You had a late-night chat with a guy who ghosted you 5 years ago. And suddenly you've got a conscience about our arrangement. You're humiliating me, Charlotte, in front of everyone who matters in this city. Is that really how you want to play this? Her chin lifted. I'm not humiliating you. I'm setting us both free. Consider this my buyout. Julian, clean and final. A buyout requires a payment. I said, my mind already shifting into damage control mode. What's the severance package? Or are you just planning to walk and leave me holding the bag for this entire circus? I don't owe you anything, she said, except maybe the truth, which is, I don't love you. I never really did. And I'm not going to pretend anymore. I stared at her. The silence between us was thick, punctuated only by the distant hum of the city. I could feel the clock ticking. 80 minutes until showtime. 79. Now. Fine. I said finally. You want out? You got it. But let's be clear about the terms. You don't get to drop this bomb and then slink away. You're going to walk downstairs, smile for the cameras, and tell them yourself. Or I will, and I promise you, my version will tank Sterling stock before lunch. Her eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare. It would destroy you too. It would dent me. I corrected. I'm a partner at a law firm. I can survive a canceled wedding. You're the face of a publicly traded company. A CEO who bails on her own wedding for an ex? That's not a dent. Charlotte, that's a crater. Your board will eat you alive. She looked away, her composure cracking for just a second. Good. I'd hit a nerve. The board was her pressure point. They'd been circling her for months, looking for a reason to oust her and install someone more stable. This would be their opening. You're a son of a bitch. Julian, she whispered, and you're a fool. I replied, but we're not done. Here's how this goes. You go back to your preparations. I'll go back to mine. In an hour, we'll have a wedding. Whether it's ours or just a performance for the vultures downstairs is up to you. But make no mistake. If you try back out at the last second, I will burn every bridge you have left. Do I make myself clear? She didn't answer. She just looked at me, her eyes blazing with a mixture of hatred and something else. Maybe respect, maybe fear. It didn't matter. Crystal, she bit out. Good. I said. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Charlotte? Ethan Cole? Enjoy him, because when he's finished using you to relaunch his career, he'll disappear again. And when that happens, don't come crawling back to me. I won't be here. I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. The stylist in the main room looked up, startled. I didn't acknowledge them. I walked straight to the bar, poured myself a double bourbon, and knocked it back. The burn in my throat was welcome. It grounded me. My phone buzzed again. Not Charlotte this time. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. The message was simple. Heard the wedding's off. Want to ruin her day properly? T.L. Tori Lancaster. Victoria Lancaster. Charlotte's biggest rival. The head of Lancaster Capital. We'd gone toe-to-toe on a hostile takeover bid 6 months ago. She'd lost, but she'd been gracious about it, which meant she was either plotting my demise or genuinely respected the play. I'd bet on the former. I stared at the screen. 75 minutes until the ceremony. The guests were arriving. The string quartet would be tuning up. The photographers were setting up their shots. Charlotte thought she'd won. She thought she'd throw me off the board. She was wrong. I typed back a single word. Define properly. The response was immediate. Meet me at the Pierre in 20. Bring your ID. Leave the pride. I smiled for the first time that morning. I smiled. Pride was for people who had something to lose. I just lost everything, which meant I had nothing left to protect. I downed another bourbon, straightened my tie, and walked out of the suite. I didn't look back. As I stepped into the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished brass. The man looking back at me wasn't a groom. He was a player, and the game had just changed. The elevator doors closed. I pulled out my phone and sent one last text to Tori. On my way. And TL? No prenups. I could practically hear her laugh through the phone. The doors opened the lobby. The chaos of the wedding was a distant hum. I walked past it all, through the revolving doors, and into the crisp Manhattan air. The sun was bright, the city was alive, and I was just getting started. The cab smelled like stale coffee and wet wool. I gave the driver to Pierre and leaned back, already running the numbers. 20 minutes. Enough time for Charlotte to realize I wasn't sulking in the suite. Enough time for her to start sweating. My phone rang. Charlotte. I declined the call. She called again. I turned the ringer off and blocked her number. She'd find another way to reach me. She always did. But I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. I was interested in seeing Tory Lancaster's play. The Pierre's lobby was quieter than the Waldorf's. More old money, less spectacle. I walked past the concierge without a glance and took the elevator to the mezzanine level. Tori was waiting outside a private salon, leaning against the wall in a charcoal suit that screamed power. No entourage, just her. You clean up nice. Vance, she said, eyeing the tux. Shame it's going to waste. Cut the small talk. Lancaster. I said, you said properly. Define it. She pushed off the wall and opened the salon door. Inside, a man in a gray suit was waiting at a small table. A lawyer. I recognized him. Daniel Reese, a name partner at Skadden. He had a folder in front of him. Daniel, thanks for coming. Tori said. She nodded at me. Julian, meet your new legal reality. Reese stood, shook my hand. His grip was firm. Dry. Mr. Vance. Ms. Lancaster explained the situation. I have the paperwork ready. Paperwork for what? I asked, sitting down. Tori sat across from me. Reese to my right. A marriage license. Tori said, sliding the folder toward me. And a postnuptial agreement. Simplified version. Since we're on a clock. I opened the folder. The first page was a standard New York State marriage application. The second was a densely worded agreement. I scanned it. You want to get married. Today, an hour after my wedding was supposed to start. 52 minutes. Technically, Tori said, checking her watch. The city clerk's office downtown processes civil ceremonies. We got an appointment at 1:15. Daniel here has already filed the initial paperwork electronically. All we need is your signature on application and the green light from you. I looked at her. And the catch? No catch, she said. Just a business proposition. You marry me. Today. Right now. It makes Charlotte look like a fool. Which, let's be honest, she is. It sends Sterling Global stock into a tailspin. And it gives me a majority stake in our combined asset pool, which currently includes a 49% of Sterling's Class B shares you hold personally. How do you know about those? I asked, my eyes narrowing. Those shares were buried in a trust. Off the books. I know everything. Julian, she said, smiling. That's why you're here. You need someone who knows the angles. I need a partner who isn't afraid to play them. We marry. We merge. Simple, not simple. I said, marriage is a legal entanglement. One I just spent 2 years negotiating my way out with Charlotte. Why would I sign up for another? Because this one comes with an exit strategy. Tori said. She tapped the postnup. Clause 4. If either party seeks dissolution within 12 months, the premarital assets revert to their original owners. No alimony. No community property claims. You keep your shares. I keep Lancaster Capital. We walk away clean. Unless, of course, we decide to stay in. I read the clause. It was airtight. Reese was good. And the public perception? Devastating. Tori said, her eyes glinting. You go from jilted groom to power player in 60 minutes. Charlotte goes from CEO to punchline. By the time she realizes what happened, we'll own the narrative. Page 6 will have a field day. CNBC will be calling before we say, I do. I leaned back. It was audacious. It was reckless. It was exactly what I needed. Charlotte expected me to lick my wounds. She didn't expect me to counterpunch before the reception even started. You realize this makes you the villain in her story. I said, permanently. I'm already the villain. Tori said with a shrug. Might as well enjoy the role. Besides, she started it. I'm just finishing it. I looked at Reese. This holds up in court? In New York? Absolutely, he said, provided both parties enter into it willingly and with full disclosure, which Ms. Lancaster has provided. I turned back to Tori. And what do you get out of this? Besides the satisfaction of sticking it to Charlotte? A partner, she said simply, one who understands that business is war, one who doesn't flinch when the stakes are high, and 49% of Sterling's voting shares, temporarily, to block any immediate board challenges while we restructure. After that, we renegotiate. I considered it. The risks were enormous. The reward was catastrophic for Charlotte, and that was the point. She'd tried to humiliate me. I'd returned the favor in spades. Fine, I said. Let's do it. Tori smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of her lips. Atta girl. She nodded at Reese. Get the application signed. I picked up the pen, hesitated for half a second, then signed. Julian Vance. My name looked different on that line. Not a groom, a combatant. Reese gathered the papers. I'll file these immediately. Meet me at the city clerk's office on Worth Street in 30 minutes. They're expecting you. He left. Tori and I were alone in the salon. She stood, smoothing her jacket. You sure about this? Vance? Once we walk out that door, there's no going back. I'm sure, I said, standing. But I have one condition. Name it. No press release. Not yet. Let her find out the old-fashioned way, through the grapevine. Or better yet, from me. Tori grinned. Cold. I like it. Consider it done. We walked out of the salon and back through the lobby. A few heads turned. Recognition flickered in some eyes. But no one stopped us. We stepped out onto Fifth Avenue. The air was sharp. The sky clear. Indifferent blue. Cabs waiting. Tori said, nodding to her black town car idling at the curb. I got in. She slid in beside me. The car pulled into traffic. You know, she said, watching the city blur past the window. My mother is going to lose her mind when she hears about this. My mother already has. I said, she's probably on her third martini at the Waldorf bar, telling anyone who'll listen that she always hated Charlotte. Tori laughed. It was a genuine sound, rough around the edges. See, we're already in sync. The ride downtown was quiet. I watched the familiar streets. Park Avenue, Madison, Broadway, each one a reminder of the world I was leaving behind. The legal world, the predictable world. I was stepping into something else now, something volatile. The car stopped in front of the city clerk's office. Reese was waiting outside with a woman in a navy blazer, the officiant. I assumed. We got out. Tori looped her arm through mine, ready to make history. Husband? Don't push it. Wife? I muttered, but I didn't pull away. Inside, the process was brisk, bureaucratic, paperwork verified, license issued. We stood before the officiant in a small, bare room. No flowers, no music, no audience, just the four of us. Do you, Julian Vance, take Victoria Lancaster to be your lawful wedded wife? I do, I said. My voice didn't waver. And do you, Victoria Lancaster, take Julian Vance to be your lawful wedded husband? I do, Tori said, her gaze steady on mine. By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. I leaned in. It was a brief, chaste kiss, a formality. But when I pulled back, Tori's eyes were bright with something that looked like triumph, or maybe challenge. Congratulations, Reese said, handing us the certified copies. Legally binding as of now. Tori tucked the papers into her purse. Time to go to work. We walked back out into the sunlight. My phone was blowing up. Texts from my mother, my partners, even a few board members. I ignored them all. I pulled up Charlotte's contact, unblocked her, and dialed. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight with fury. Julian, where the hell are you? The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. I've got people looking for you. Relax. Charlotte, I said, my tone calm. The ceremony's off. Remember? You called it. Then get your ass back here and let's manage the fallout. We can issue a joint statement, mutual decision. Irreconcilable differences. No need. I cut in. I've already handled it. Handle what? She demanded. The next chapter. I said, turn on CNBC. Charlotte, or better yet, check your stock ticker. I'll let you figure out the rest. I hung up before she could respond. Tori was watching me, an eyebrow arched. That was cruel, even for you. She started it. I said, echoing her earlier words. Tori's phone rang. She answered, listened for a beat, then smiled. Perfect timing. That was Daniel. Sterling stock just dropped 4 points in after-hours trading. News of our marriage just hit Bloomberg. I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. Good. Now the real fun begins. Tori said, turning to face me fully. We got a press conference scheduled for 3 p.m. at Lancaster Tower. We'll announce the merger of our personal holdings and hint at a broader strategic alliance. By 5, Charlotte's board will be in emergency session. By 6, she'll be looking for a new job. And us, I asked, will be the most talked about couple in Manhattan. She said, love it or hate it. Julian, we're the story now. So what's the play? Do we play the happy newlyweds? Or the ruthless power duo? I thought about it. About Charlotte's face when she realized what I'd done. About the look in Ethan Cole's eyes when he found out his leverage was gone. About the future Tori and I could build. If we didn't tear each other apart first. Ruthless, I said finally. Always ruthless. Tori grinned and clapped me on the shoulder. Attaboy. Welcome to the family. Vance, try not to screw it up. She turned and walked toward the waiting car. I followed, the certified marriage certificate burning a hole in my pocket. 1 hour. From abandoned groom to married man. From pawn to player. The city stretched out before us, vast and unforgiving. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. Behind us, the Waldorf was still in chaos. Ahead of us, the game had just begun, and I intended to win. The elevator in Lancaster Tower smelled like ozone and money. Tori stood with her arms crossed, staring at the floor numbers tick up. I checked my watch. 3:05. The press conference was delayed. Classic move, make them sweat. You're enjoying this too much. I said, I'm enjoying it exactly the right amount. She said, without looking at me, Charlotte's probably having a meltdown in her limo right now. I hope she chokes on a Xanax. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Vance, you son of a bitch. Charlotte's voice, raw and shaking. You married her? Are you out of your goddamn mind? I put the phone on speaker. Tori's mouth twitched into a smile. Morning, Charlotte. I said, or what's left of it. This is a joke. She hissed. This is some pathetic stunt to save face. It won't hold up. I'll have your marriage annulled before sundown. On what grounds? Tori cut in, finally looking at me. Fraud? Duress? Good luck proving either when Julian signed a license of his own free will, sober, and with full mental capacity. Also, we consummated it. Ask your legal team if that still qualifies as an annulment. Spoiler, it doesn't. Silence on the line. Then a sharp intake of breath. You planned this. You set me up. You canceled a $3 billion merger 1 hour before the ceremony. I said, I just filled the vacancy. Efficient, wouldn't you say? Ethan was right about you. She spat. You're a cold-blooded shark. No heart, no soul. Ethan Cole? Tori laughed. That's rich. Tell me, Charlotte, did he mention the $8 million he just wired into a Cayman account? Or the non-disclosure agreement he signed with Westfield Partners last week? The one that pays him to feed them Sterling's Q3 earnings early? Another silence. Longer this time. I could hear the blood draining from her face through the phone. You're lying, she whispered. Check his hard drive. Tori said, her tone turning icy. Subfolder labeled as global. Password is your birthday backwards. Sloppy, even for him. Daniel Reese has the affidavit ready. We're leaking it to the Journal at 4. Tick-tock. The line went dead. Charlotte had hung up. That was mean. I said, She canceled your wedding for a guy who's grifting her blind. Torai said, Mean would be letting her walk into that board meeting at 4:30 without knowing. This is a courtesy flush. The elevator dinged. 48th floor. Lancaster Capital's executive suite. We stepped out into a buzz of controlled chaos. Analysts at terminals. PR people on phones. A camera crew setting up in the glass-walled conference room. Torai grabbed a tablet from a passing assistant. Status? Sterling's down 7%. The assistant said. Trading volumes triple the daily average. CNBC's got a breaking news banner. Sterling CEO jilted. Rival weds ex-fiancée in civil ceremony. We're trending on X. Hashtag power move is top 5. Good. Torai said. She turned to me. Conference in 10. I want you front and center. No notes. Just tell them the truth or our version of it, which is that this isn't personal. It's structural. Two entities recognizing synergy and acting on it. Keep it dry. Keep it boring. Let them fill in the blanks with how much you must hate Charlotte. I nodded. 10 minutes. Enough time to piss off one more person. I pulled out my phone and dialed Ethan Cole. He answered on the third ring, sounding out of breath. Who is this? Julian Vance. Congratulations. By the way, you've officially ruined a woman's life before lunch. That's a new record. Even for you. Vance? What the fuck? How did you get this number? Charlotte gave it to me before she realized you're using her to pay off your gambling debts in Macau. Westfield partners know you're double-dealing them. Ethan? Because I'm about to tell them. Silence. Then a panicked stammer. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm not. Save it. I said, I'm giving you one chance. Disappear. Get on a flight to Geneva, Dubai, anywhere but here. If I see your face in a Manhattan boardroom again, I'll bury you so deep they'll need a miner's permit to find your credit score. Understand? You can't threaten me. I just did. Clock's ticking. Ethan, enjoy the Caymans. They don't extradite for white-collar crimes. Yet, I hung up. Torai was watching me, leaning against the glass wall. You let him off easy. He's not the target. I said, he's just a virus. Charlotte's the host. Speaking of, Torai said, nodding toward the TV mounted in the corner. The screen showed a live shot of Sterling Global's headquarters. Charlotte was walking in, surrounded by a phalanx of lawyers and PR flacks. She looked composed, but her knuckles were white on her briefcase. 3:30, Torai said, board meeting. She's going to try to spin this as a mutual party and pivot to a new strategic direction. She's going to fail. I said, damn right she is. Torai pushed off the wall. Conference time. Let's go remind them who runs this town. The press conference was a meat market. Flashes popping. Reporters shouting over each other. Torai stepped up to the podium. Cool as a bank vault. I stood slightly behind her, hands in my pockets, projecting board competence. Thank you all for coming on short notice. Torai began. As you're aware, this morning's events have generated significant interest. Let me be clear. Julian Vance and I entered into a legal marriage approximately 90 minutes ago. This union reflects a consolidation of our respective holdings and a shared vision for the future of institutional investing in the tech sector. A reporter from the Post shouted, "Is this a revenge marriage? Ms. Lancaster?" Torai didn't blink. I don't do revenge. I do returns. Julian's track record in M&A speaks for itself. Combining our resources creates a formidable platform. Any other interpretation is tabloid fodder. Mr. Vance, a CNBC anchor called out, "What does this mean for your previous relationship with Charlotte Sterling? Was this planned?" I stepped forward, keeping my voice level. Charlotte and I had a professional understanding. When that understanding dissolved, I reassessed my options. Victoria presented a compelling alternative. This isn't about the past. It's about the next phase of growth for both our portfolios. Did you know Charlotte was reconsidering the wedding? Another reporter asked. I became aware of her decision this morning. I said, I respected her choice and acted in my own best interest, as any rational actor would. Torai jumped back in. To be explicit, Lancaster Capital and Sterling Global are now in a de facto merger of certain key assets. We've filed the requisite disclosures with the SEC. We anticipate a formal tender offer for outstanding Sterling shares within the week. This isn't a stunt. It's a restructuring. The room erupted. Shouts. Flashing lights. A dozen questions at once. Torai held up a hand. No further questions. Thank you. We walked off the stage, through a side door, into a private conference room. Torai poured 2 fingers of scotch into a glass and handed it to me. Not bad. You kept it clinical. They'll hate you for it, which means it played perfectly. Charlotte's board meeting is starting, I said, glancing at the monitor. The live feed showed her entering the boardroom. Head high. The door closed behind her. Popcorn? Torai offered, settling into a leather chair. I stayed standing, watching the screen. 20 minutes passed, then 30. At the 40-minute mark, the boardroom door burst open. Charlotte stormed out, followed by a balding man in a navy suit, Arthur Pembroke. The board chair. He looked furious. She looked like she'd been slapped. Well, Torai murmured. Looks like the coup is complete. My phone buzzed. A text from a source inside Sterling. Board voted 8-3 to accept Lancaster's proposal. Charlotte's out. Effective immediately. I showed Tori the screen. She grinned. Told you. 4:30. Right on schedule. She'll come for us. I said, let her. Torai said, she's got no leverage, no company, no fiancé, and soon, no reputation. We got the shares, the narrative, and the SEC filings. She's yesterday's news. I watched the screen as Charlotte disappeared into an elevator, her shoulders stiff. Part of me felt a flicker or something, not pity. Exactly. Just a cold recognition of a game played to its logical end. She'd made a move. I'd countered. She'd lost. That was business. You're quiet, Torai observed. Just thinking. I said, about the next move. There is no next move, she said. We've won. The only thing left is a cleanup. But I knew better. In this town, winning was temporary. The only constant was the next fight. And Tory Lancaster was the most dangerous opponent or ally I'd ever had. My phone buzzed again. A new number. I answered. Vance. A woman's voice. Cool and precise. Mr. Vance. This is Elaine Marsden, General Counsel for Sterling Global's board. The board has authorized me to inform you that they recognize the validity of your marriage to Ms. Lancaster and the associated transfer of shares. However, they request to sit down to discuss the transition. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., our offices. I'll be there, I said, with my wife. I hung up. Torai raised an eyebrow. Wife, I like the sound of that. Legally speaking. Of course. I echoed, but as I said it, I realized something. The lie we were telling, the cold, calculated merger, was starting to feel less like a lie, and that was more dangerous than any boardroom battle. Tomorrow, Torai said, standing and stretching, we'll finalize the takeover, dilute Charlotte's remaining stake, and install our own people. By noon, Lancaster Vance will be the new letterhead, and after that, I asked. She walked to the door, then paused, looking back at me. After that, we see if this marriage survives the merger, or if we end up eating each other alive. Either way, Julian, it's going to be one hell of a ride. She left. I stayed in the conference room, the city lights blurring outside the window. Somewhere out there, Charlotte was licking her wounds. Ethan was probably on a plane, and I was married to the woman who'd helped me burn it all down. I took a sip of the scotch. It burned going down, just like the truth. The game wasn't over. It had just changed players. And I intended to win this round. 2. The coffee in the Lancaster Tower break room tasted like burnt asphalt. I'd been up since 4. Reading the 8K filing Tories team had dumped on the SEC's doorstep at midnight. Clean. Surgical. It listed me as co-signatory on every major asset transfer. My name wasn't just on the marriage certificate anymore. It was on the kill shot. My phone lit up. Torai, Conference Room B. Now, I walked in. She was already there, hunched over a laptop, barking at her seal. Ray Mitchell. Don't care if they've been with Sterling for 20 years. If they aren't on the retained list, they're out by Friday. I want their access cards disabled at 5 p.m. sharp. No goodbyes. No good luck emails. Just a security escort to the lobby. Ray nodded, scribbling notes. He glanced at me, gave a curt nod, and left. You're purging the mid-level managers, I said, leaning against the glass table. The ones who actually know how the legacy systems run. Dead weight. Tori said without looking up. They're loyal to Charlotte's vision, not ours. We need our own people in place before the markets open on Monday. Efficiency. Julian, you taught me that. I taught you to calculate risk. I said, bleeding talent that fast creates operational risk. If the servers crash because some VP of IT got canned, it's on us. She finally looked at me, her eyes hard. Since when do you care about the little people? You married me to win a war, not to save the pawns. Don't get squeamish on me now. I'm not squeamish. I said, I'm pragmatic. There's a difference between a hostile takeover and a scorched earth policy. Burn it all down, and there's nothing left to rule. She stood, slowly. You think I don't know that? I built Lancaster Capital from a broom closet. Julian, I didn't inherit a safety net like you or Charlotte. Every hire I made, every deal I closed, was a fight. Now I've got a Fortune 500 company on my plate, and half the board wants my head on a pike because I married the enemy. I don't have time for a soft landing. I need control, total control. Control doesn't mean slaughtering civilians. I said, my voice low, you start firing people indiscriminately. You'll trigger wrongful termination suits, whistleblower complaints, maybe even a DOJ inquiry into how we handle the transition. Is that the headline you want? Lancaster Van's purge ends in federal investigation. She stepped closer, invading my space. You're awfully concerned about PR all of a sudden. Where was this concern when you dragged me into that courthouse? Or when we fed Charlotte to the wolves? That was targeted. I said, holding my ground. This is a massacre. And it's not just PR. It's the law. I'm a partner at a firm that specializes in white-collar defense. Remember? I know how fast a cleanup becomes a criminal referral if you're not careful. Then be careful, she hissed. But don't tell me how to run my company. Or our company. Whatever the hell it is. Our company. I corrected, which means I have a say. And my say is, we tier the layoffs. Offer voluntary severance packages to the top 2 tiers. Give the rest 30 days notice and a reference. It costs more upfront, but it keeps the lights on and the regulators off our backs. She stared at me for a long moment, then laughed a short, sharp bark. You're trying to humanize me. Cute, but it won't work. I'm not the hero of this story. Julian, I'm the villain who won. Let them sue. We've got deeper pockets and better lawyers. Lawyers lose cases. Tori, I said, even good ones. And if we're spending the next year in depositions, we're not growing the business. We're just surviving it. Is that what you want? She looked away, jaw tight. I want Charlotte to look at her bank account and realize she can't even afford a studio in Queens. I want Ethan Cole to read about our success from whatever gutter he's drowning in. I want everyone who ever doubted me to choke on it. That's what I want. And after that, I asked quietly, what's the goal? Revenge isn't a business model. It's a fuel source. Eventually, it burns out. She didn't answer. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Then at me. It's the front desk. Charlotte's here. She's demanding to see you. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. Send her up. Alone. Tori said into the phone. Then she hung up and looked at me. You sure about this? Last chance to let me handle it. I'll handle it, I said. But Tori, if you go through with the mass firings today, I'm walking, not out of the marriage. The post-nup covers that, but out of the operating agreement. You can have Lancaster Vance. I'll take my shares and my reputation and start over. Without you. Her eyes flashed. You're bluffing. Am I? I held her gaze. Try me. She held my stare for 5 seconds. Then 10. Finally, she looked away, muttering a curse. Fine, 30 days. Voluntary packages. But I'm not budging on the C-suite. They're gone by Monday. Agreed. I said, it was a win. A small one, but a win. The door opened. Charlotte walked in. She looked like hell. Hair messy. No makeup. Wearing yesterday's wrinkled blouse. She didn't look at Tori. Just at me. Julian. She whispered. Tori smirked. I'll leave you two lovebirds alone. Try not to kiss. It'll ruin the aesthetic. She walked out, closing the door behind her. Charlotte sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. I'm ruined. The board stripped me of everything. My apartment, my car, even my corporate Amex. They're all owned by the company. I got $1,500 in my personal account and a storage unit full of shoes. I stayed standing. You made your choices. Charlotte, I know, she said, her voice muffled. God, I know. I was so stupid. Nathan, he cleaned out the accounts I hadn't transferred to the trust. He's gone. Julian, vanished. Left me with a stack of unpaid invoices and a federal subpoena. I told you he was a grifter. I said, you didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear you. She snapped, looking up. Her eyes were red, but defiant. You were so busy calculating the ROI on our marriage that you forgot I'm a person. Ethan, he made me feel like one, even if it was a lie. Feelings don't pay bills. I said, or legal fees. She laughed, a broken sound. No, they don't. That's why I'm here. I need your help. Alone, just enough to get a place. Hire a lawyer. Fight the charges. I'll pay you back. I swear. Studded high. The woman who'd humiliated me in front of half of Manhattan was begging for spare change. It should have felt good. It didn't. It just felt empty. I'll give you $50,000. I said, enough for a studio, a retainer, and a bus ticket out of state, but on 3 conditions. She nodded eagerly. Anything. 1, you never contact me again. Not by phone, not by email, not through a third party, not even a Christmas card. Done. 2, you sign a non-disparagement agreement. Anything you say about me, Tori, or Lancaster vans to the press, to investigators, to anyone, and the money stops, and I'll sue you for breach. Fine. 3, you leave New York, permanently. I don't care where you go, Florida, Wyoming, Timbuktu, but you're not staying in this city. If I see you at a gala, a restaurant, even a fucking Starbucks, the deal's off. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You're exiling me. I'm saving you. I said, from yourself, from the board, from the feds. Take it or leave it. She was quiet for a long time. Then she wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and nodded. I'll take it. Can I have the check now? I pulled out my checkbook, wrote it quickly, tore it off, and handed it to her. She took it with trembling fingers, folded it, and tucked it into her bra. Thank you, she whispered. Then she stood, walked to the door, and paused. Julian, be careful with her. Tori, she's not like you. You play by rules. She plays to win, and winning it eats you alive. She left. I stood there, the check stub in my hand. $50,000, the price of silence, of exile, of closure. The door opened again. Tori leaned against the frame. Well, did she grovel enough? She's leaving, I said, permanently. Good, Tori said. She walked in, her eyes dropping to the check stub. 50 grand? Generous. Stupid, but generous. It's a settlement. I said, consider it a cleanup cost, or a down payment on a future problem. She said, picking up the stub. You know she'll blow through that in a month. Then she'll be back, hat in hand, asking for more. Or worse. She'll talk to the Times about how her ex-husband and his new wife destroyed her life. Great look for a hostile takeover. She signed the NDA. I said, NDAs don't stop desperate people. Tori said, and you just made her desperate. Or did you forget that part of your pragmatism? I felt a flicker of anger. I did what was necessary. What would you have done? Let her sleep on a park bench? Yes, Tor, I said without hesitation. Or better yet, I'd have let the feds pick her up on fraud charges and let her rot in MDC. It's cleaner, more efficient, and it sends a message. Cross us, and you don't get a parachute. You get a cell. That's not justice. I said, that's cruelty. It's business. She shot back, and you're in it now, whether you like it or not. You wrote that check. Julian, you just bought yourself a future headache. And when that headache turns into a migraine, don't come crying to me. She tossed the check stub onto the table. I'm moving forward with a C-suite purge. You can either help me draft the separation agreements or get the hell out of my way. Your choice. She turned and walked out. I stared at the check stub. The ink was still wet. $50,000. A small fortune to some. Pocket change to us. But it had bought something priceless. Peace. Or the illusion of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Ray. COO and CFO have been notified. Security is escorting them out now. Press release drafting complete. Awaiting your approval. I looked at the message. Then at the closed door. Tori was right. I had bought a headache. But I'd also drawn a line. One she'd crossed. And if I let her keep crossing it, there'd be nothing left of me but a name on a ledger. I typed back. Hold the press release. We need to talk. Conference room A. 5 minutes. I stood, straightened my tie, and walked out. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Or a reckoning. I pushed open the door to conference room A. Tori was there, buying herself a drink. She didn't look up. Change of heart? She asked. Change of terms. I said, the post-nup. We're rewriting it. She finally looked at me. One eyebrow arch. Oh, and what makes you think I'll agree? Because if you don't, I'll leak the revised asset list to the Wall Street Journal myself. I said, let's see how your board feels about a CEO who married a man she met in a courthouse 6 hours before announcing a merger. Or better yet, let's see how the SEC feels about the speed of those share transfers. Her eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out a chair and sat down. Try me. She stared at me for a long moment, then slowly set her glass down. Fine. Talk. We're partners. I said, equal partners. Not just on paper. In decisions. In strategy. In the humanity of this business. You want to win? Fine. But we win together. Or we don't win at all. Starting with the layoffs. 30 days. Voluntary packages. Or I walk. And I take my 49% with me. And you can explain to your investors why your visionary merger just lost half its voting power. She was quiet. Then she laughed a low, genuine sound. You've got balls. Vance, I'll give you that. Fine. Equal partners. But don't expect me to go soft. And don't expect me to thank you for the check to Charlotte. I don't expect either. I said, I expect you to honor the partnership. Or I'll burn it down myself. She raised her glass. To equal partners. Then, may we drive each other insane before we die rich. I didn't raise mine. To the partnership. I said, may it survive us both. She drank. I didn't. I was done drinking today. Done celebrating. Done pretending this was anything but a high-stakes gamble with my life as the ante. The game had changed again. And this time, I wasn't just playing to win. I was playing to stay alive. The clock on the wall said 11:47 p.m. The only light in the conference room came from the 2 laptops glowing on the table. Mine, Tori's. Between them sat the original post-nup, printed on heavy cream stock, looking like a relic from a more civilized era. Next, it was a red-line version I'd spent the last 6 hours drafting. Tori leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. You rewrote the entire definition of joint assets. Why? Because the old one treated us like 2 companies in a loose affiliation. I said, not looking up from the screen. This treats us like a single entity, irrevocable, unless we both sign off. No unilateral frisis. No secret transfers to offshore trusts. You don't trust me, she said. It wasn't a question. I finally looked at her. I don't trust anyone who thinks firing a janitor is a power move. Trust isn't the point. Structure is, you want a partner? Then act like one. Stop governing by executive order. She laughed. Short and humorless. You sound like a goddamn TED Talk. Structure. Governance. You're still playing lawyer. Julian, I'm playing for keeps. So am I. I said, sliding the red line document toward her. Read Clause 7. The dissolution clause. I took out the 12-month escape hatch. Her eyes snapped to the page. She scanned it, her finger trailing down the text. You remove the exit. You're saying we're locked in? For how long? For as long as we're both breathing. I said, or until we mutually agree to terminate. No more counting down the days until you can dump me and keep the shares. If you want out, I have to agree. If I want out, you have to agree. We sink or swim together. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. That's not a partnership. That's a hostage situation. It's a marriage. I said, the real kind, not the PR version we sold to CNBC. You want to know why Charlotte failed? Because she treated everything like a transaction she could walk away from. You're doing the same thing, just faster. I'm offering you something different. Something permanent. Scared? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the laptop, pulled it closer, and started typing. I watched her delete entire paragraphs, rewrite definitions, add subclauses. For 20 minutes, the only sound was the click of keys. Finally, she spun the laptop back toward me. Fine, no exit clause. But I added a deadlock resolution section. If we can't agree on a major decision after 3 votes, it goes to binding arbitration with a neutral third party. And I picked the arbitrator, Judge Mariana Reyes. She owes me a favor. Reyes is fair. I said, scanning the addition. I can live with that. Good, she said. Now clause 12, the loyalty covenant. I added a provision. If either of us engages in conduct that materially damages the other's reputation, including but not limited to leaking to the press, cooperating with federal investigations, or associating with known adversaries, the injured party can seize a controlling stake. Automatically, I looked up. You're talking about Charlotte. I'm talking about anyone. She said, her eyes hard, including Ethan Cole, if he crawls out of whatever hole he's in, including your mother, if she decides to sell her memoirs to Vanity Fair, including you, if you decide to grow a conscience and go whistleblower. I'm not getting blindsided again. Julian, not by you, not by anyone. I nodded slowly. Fair enough, but it's reciprocal. If you go after me, I get the same leverage. Obviously, she said, waving a hand. Now, the big one, the operating control clause. I'm not signing away my authority. I run Lancaster Capital. You run the legal and MA strategy. But on anything that affects both entities, acquisitions over $500 million, I pose major divestitures. We vote. Together. Equal weight. Agreed. I said, but I want veto power on any personnel action involving senior staff. No more midnight purges without my sign-off. She hesitated. Then she sighed. Fine, but if your veto slows down a critical hire, I'm overriding you, and you'll thank me later. We'll see. I said. I pulled up the final page. Last thing, the preamble. The old one called this a strategic alignment of personal and professional interests. Change it. To what? The formation of a permanent personal and professional union, predicated on mutual reliance, shared risk, and absolute fidelity to the collective enterprise. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she started typing again. When she finished, she turned the screen. The new preamble was there. Verbatim. You're a romantic sap beneath all that Armani. She muttered. And you're a control freak beneath that Prada. I shot back. We balance each other. That's the point. She didn't argue. She just reached for the pen, clicked it, and signed her name with a sharp, decisive stroke. Victoria Lancaster. Clear. Unmistakable. Then she slid the document to me. I signed. Julian Vance. My handwriting was steadier than I felt. She took the pen back, capped it, and set it down. It's done. Legally binding as of now. Congratulations. Husband, you've just made yourself unemployable anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere. Ditto. Wife, I said, you've just made yourself accountable to someone other than your own ego. She snorted, but there was no heat in it. She closed her laptop, stood, and stretched. I need a drink. Then I need to sleep for a week. Then I need to fire half the people in HR for not catching the loopholes in the old version. You do that, I said, standing as well. I'll be in the office. I want to review the transition filings before the markets open. Still working? She asked, raising an eyebrow. It's midnight. You're still working. I pointed out. Yeah, well, I'm the boss, she said. Then she paused. Or half the boss. Now, fuck, that's going to take some getting used to. She walked to the door, then stopped and looked back. You know, for a guy who got left at the altar, you're pretty good at rewriting the ending. I didn't rewrite it. I said, I just stopped letting other people write it for me. She held my gaze for a beat longer, then nodded. See you tomorrow. Partner, see you tomorrow. She left. I stayed, looking at the signed agreement. The ink was drying. The deal was sealed. Not a marriage of convenience. A merger. A real one. Messy. Volatile. Potentially catastrophic, but real. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was a photo. Charlotte, sitting on a bus, looking out the window. The caption read, Greyhound to Raleigh. Thanks for the ticket. Don't worry. I won't be a problem. Good luck with her. You'll need it. See. I stared at the photo. Then I deleted it. No reply. No closure. Just distance. It was enough. I gathered the documents, slid them into my briefcase, and walked out of the conference room. The halls of Lancaster Tower were dark, silent. I took the elevator down to the garage, got into my car, and drove through the empty streets of Manhattan. At a red light on Park Avenue, I glanced at the briefcase on the passenger seat. Inside was a new agreement. Inside was my future. Uncertain, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But mine. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Tori. I answered via Bluetooth. Vance, just checking if you jumped off a bridge yet, she said, her voice lazy. Newlywed jitters and all. Not yet, I said. You? Nah, too expensive to replace the windows. Hey, about tomorrow, the 9 a.m., with the Sterling board. I want you leading the asset presentation. Show them who's really in charge now. I can do that, I said. Good, she said. And Julian? Don't wear that blue tie. It washes you out. Wear the charcoal one. Makes you look like you mean business. I almost smiled. Charcoal it is. See you at 7 for breakfast, she said. Don't be late. Husbands shouldn't keep wives waiting. She hung up. The light turned green. I drove on, the city waking up around me. Somewhere, a new day was beginning. A new game was starting. And this time, I wasn't playing to survive. I was playing to build. 6 months later, the NASDAQ bell rang, loud and clear. Lancaster Vance Global was now a listed entity. Ticker symbol LVNC. Tori stood at the podium, all sharp angles and sharper words, welcoming the market. I stood beside her, silent, steady. The cameras flashed. The analysts scribbled. The stock ticked up. Afterward, in the empty trading floor, she leaned against the glass wall, looking out at the city. I walked over, handed her a bottle of water. Not bad, Vance, she said, twisting off the cap. 6 months. Profitable quarter. No indictments. I'd call that a win. A start. I said, the integration's only halfway done. We still got 3 legacy systems to migrate, 2 regulatory inquiries to close, and a shareholder lawsuit in Delaware to settle. Details, she said, waving it off. The big stuff's handled. We're a machine now, a well-oiled, terrifying machine. Speak for yourself. I said, I'm just a grease monkey. She laughed, then grew serious. You know, when I sent that text from the courthouse, I thought, this'll piss her off. That's it. I didn't think it'd turn into this. She gestured vaguely at the floor, the screens, the city beyond. Us, this thing we built. You thought it'd be a stunt. I said, I thought it'd be a shield. We were both wrong. Yeah, she said softly. We were. She looked at me then, really looked at me. You ever wonder what would have happened if she hadn't called it off? Every day, I said, and every day. I'm glad she did. She didn't reply. She just leaned her head against my shoulder. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a kiss. It was just contact, acknowledgement, the closest thing to tenderness I'd ever seen from her. After a minute, she straightened up. Ugh, that was gross. Never tell anyone I did that. Your secret's safe. I said. She smirked. Next time, let's skip the wedding and go straight to the merger. Save time, save money, save the drama. I looked at her, at the woman who become my partner in every sense of the word, the woman who challenged me, infuriated me, and, despite everything, anchored me. Deal, I said. She grinned, clapped me on the back, and walked toward the elevators. Come on, husband, we've got a shareholders meeting in an hour. Let's go remind them who owns this town. I followed her, the echoes of our footsteps fading into the hum of the city. Behind us, the trading floor lay empty, the screens glowing with numbers that represented billions. Yes, but also represented us, our risks, our choices, our merger, not of convenience, of conviction. And as the elevator doors closed, sealing us in, I realized something. I wasn't just winning anymore. I was home.